Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. Hope you guys are doing well today. This video I'm going to be talking through PROT Warrior and just basically commentating a Miss 13 that I did. And the reason I'm doing this is because I just changed to Night Fae. As you can see, I've just gone over my talents and soulbinds in the video. The soulbinds, I don't have any at the moment equipped. And the reason for the conduits, because the conduit energy is such a ridiculous mechanic, unfortunately, that it just doesn't work, and I have no conduit energy. Happy days. So we're doing all this without conduits at all, and honestly, we're having great success so far. So my goal in this run was to be as survivable as I can, enough that I'm not getting insta-killed, I'm able to tank, I'm able to mitigate the damage, but to just pump out as much damage as possible. As you can see, we're getting into the first pack already, 8k DPS. We kept shield block up for the entire time, and we are playing Reprisal. And like I said, we've also switched to Night Fae. Now, the fun thing with Night Fae is you can almost rotate Ancient Aftershock with Ravager, one per pack, and you maintain very high levels of damage and rage generation, which is really, really nice to have both. So you see here, I'm just getting low on shield block. I'm starting to get to a point where, okay, I haven't got any more charges. I haven't got an intervene. Or actually, I have charges, but I don't have actual charges of the ability. So I have to jump out, charge back in, get myself another one, use a charge of it, and I'm able to maintain that shield block. And that's going to be my focus. Ignore Pain is nice. If I'm ever in a bad situation, I need a little bit more mitigation. But ultimately, I want to be using as much rage as possible on Revenge. Now, there's a couple of interesting things to say about this. One, I'm 210 eye level, which means I'm just going to do more damage when I have more strength, when I have more mastery, more crit, more haste, everything, more versatility, all of it. All of it will contribute to my damage. The second point to this is I'm running very low amounts of haste at the moment compared to where I should be. So I'm currently at 10% haste, 346 haste rating. I should be up around the 25% if I can help it, or 30% even. That's where I want to be. I am currently, just to go over my stats, of 321 crit, which equates to 15%, 10% haste, which is 346 rating, 284 mastery, which is 24%, it gives me 16% attack power, and then 18% versatility. I've been very, very lucky with versatility, and it is very nice. It obviously helps mitigate damage, but haste would be where I'm aiming for right now for improvements and upgrades. And as you can see, I'm going into every pack, I'm bursting really heavily, I mean 9k there, and I'm able to kite a lot more, which I've noticed that not necessarily needed in a 13, but as I'm starting to get into the Keystone Master Keys and 15 pluses, etc., things like that, I'm noticing that the ability, the fact that I'm going to have so much threat on things, means that I can go into a pack and go, okay, I'm going to burst really hard for 5-6 seconds, and then I'm just going to leave. And I can do that regularly, which is really, really fun, and it gives me another option. I can either sit there and face tank it, which I have the ability to do with Reprisal, or I can use that kite mentality, which again works really well with Reprisal, because you kind of charge in and intervene and shield block. It gives you about 9 seconds of shield block there. Gives you 2 rounds of PROT Revenge, which do ridiculous damage. You're going to have a lot of threat, you're going to be very heavily mitigated, and by the time that runs out, you should have enough threat that you can just walk out of the pack, heroic leap, intervene to a range, anything you want really, shockwave out, all that good stuff. So there is lots of things you can do, and it depends what you're looking for out of a dungeon. Like I said, in this dungeon specifically, I decided I'm going to do as much damage as I can. Now, as you can see, I'm running Dreadfire Vessel. It's not my optimal choice for a tank trinket. I would probably prefer something that at least give me some defensive benefit. But it's what I've got, so I am using it. It's macroed into my Shield Slam at the moment, and it does, again, help with that single target threat. A little bit of that single target damage as well. So I'm going to hold my Ancient Aftershock here, but I do use my Ravager. I try not to use them both ever on the same pack, because the rage generation is just ridiculous. You are going to overcap rage, you're going to overcap on everything really, and you don't need to, whereas you could use it on 2 separate packs and you're going to be very survivable, very defensive on 2 packs. So that's kind of my preferred method of kind of staggering them. The other part here is I knew we were about to go into the boss with Pride, and I wanted to be able to burst on the boss. So you walk in, we've used nothing yet, okay? We've used no DPS cooldowns, no Avatar, no anything, no Ravager. We're already pulling 4k DPS over 2 targets, and we're just going to keep pumping here. Now, the important thing is you do want to keep shield block up when trying to do damage, especially if it's single target damage, because shield block increases your shield slam damage. So as you can see, I do let it fall off just at the start here, but we're already hitting sort of 7.8, 8k DPS, and we are absolutely pumping single target. And you see there's Unholy DK, and I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, but we're actually out DPSing him on the burn phase, and you can just see the difference that this makes. Now, I've said it before in videos that having a healer, when I was tanking as my Guardian Druid, having a healer that actively did DPS, a Holy Pally that was pumping numbers, makes the whole run go smoother. And the reason for that is they contribute, everything's dying quicker. Okay, dying is one of the best forms of mitigation. If things are dead, they're not killing you. And a Holy Pally every now and again, if they're running Ashen Hollow or anything like that, they're doing a lot of damage, they're able to help kill bosses quicker. All of that means that you're having to survive for less time, which is nice. Well, PROT Pally kind of has the same mentality. Bring in PROT Pally at the moment, they're going to pump numbers, they're going to look after themselves for a good chunk of the dungeon through just mitigation. I don't take very much damage at all. And the other part is that it allows the healer to also do some damage. You see this healer is actually pumping 1.5k DPS there as well. All in all, our group at the moment is pumping around 25k DPS, maybe 20k DPS as a group, which is very, very nice. And I found it's much easier to hit these higher numbers, and I found I've had much less weak DPS keys since I've been playing my Prot Warrior compared to my Guardian Druid. My Guardian Druid has a lot of, or had a lot of, kind of burst single target damage through things like Convoke in Boomy form. Other than the fact it's a little bit risky, it has a 3-minute cooldown, and it does a lot of damage, but outside of that damage, they were very low overall. I haven't played too much Vengeance Demon Hunter. I'm sure they could probably do a lot of damage. But, I mean, Prot Warriors, they are just pumping damage here. They do offer a little bit of utility. Again, the Shades this week, I've been fearing them, shockwaving them, aftershocking them, Thunderclap slowing them, all this sort of thing that really, really helps with just mitigating that threat to the group, really. So again, I use my Ancient Aftershock on that pack, which means Ravager's back up for this pack. I'm going to Avatar because I'm running Anger Management and we just want to get it on cooldown as soon as we can. And you can see we've gone into this, we've charged in, we've used the charge of shield block, and we are absolutely pumping with Revenges. Even getting a couple of Ignore Pains in there as well, just to help the healer out. And we are absolutely pumping damage. Our health didn't move for this pack so far. And again, my shield block's just dropped now. So what I should do in a higher key is at that point is when I would have heroic leaped out and I'd have just left the fight. I've done enough damage. I've done my job. Okay, I've got threat on everything. I didn't take too much damage. I could just leave that fight at that point, kite the rest of the mobs out, and I wouldn't have lost anything major. Obviously, like I said, my goal in this dungeon was to try to pump some numbers, which is why I stayed. But, I mean, if I wanted to be efficient, if I wanted to try to go that way, that's how I would have done it. So we go here against the Matriarch. Now, I try to hold everything against the Matriarch. The reason for this is it's very similar to the bosses. We can pump. If I put everything here, I would be able to pump sort of 4.5, 5k damage, which again, very helpful because, I mean, you're not able to cleave on other mobs. It speeds up the single target fights, which means your DPS are able to kill the AoE packs quicker because you're getting to them quicker. But ultimately, I felt I would more helpful holding my cooldowns for the AoE packs. I would have actually liked it if a DPS here had just gone, not a problem, I'll burst this. And the mage kind of did. And yeah, so as you can see, I'm having to do the maze as well, which isn't ideal as the tank. You probably don't want to be doing that all too much, but hey, it is what it is. So the one thing with Pride I will mention is it's very, very hard to get the heroic leap charges back in. You can do it without the Pride moving, but it's a little bit annoying and the group tend to panic when you do it, so I don't tend to bother. As you can see, by the way, when I was mentioning before about if we needed to kill something single target, I'm pretty sure the mage used a cooldown on the dragon, and I wanted to make sure this pride died in reasonable time. Again, I'm not doing massive damage, but I do pump Avatar, Aftershock, and Ravager here, and make sure it gets dead. Which actually was probably a mistake. I should have used one, maybe not both, and I'd have probably used Ravager, because Aftershock just is a more impactful cooldown. And that leaves me going into this pack now with no cooldowns at all. And we've already seen an interrupt go through. That interrupt wouldn't have been needed if I'd have had Aftershock, because they got knocked down every 3 seconds. I would have been pumping 10k damage instead of 7k damage. And this is the thing, it's about trying to maximize your cooldown usage, but that means also being smart with it. Now, we do kill all that pack. I mean, it's never going to be that much of an issue on a 13. But it is something to be aware of. If you do use them all at the same time, you can get into a situation where you're kind of left with nothing. And it's not a nice situation to be in. You don't want to be left feeling like you have no way to deal with a pack. So I go into this pack. I've immediately popped Last Sand. I've immediately popped Demoralizing Shout, because I'm going to have to revenge spam a little bit just to actually get any DPS against this pack. I don't have Aftershock, I do now, but I didn't have Aftershock going into this pack. I didn't have Ravager, and I've now actually felt like I needed to use both just to maintain a little bit of control into this pack. Now, we are still pumping, I mean, 8k DPS. One of the heals went through, and I didn't get the interrupt. I didn't have a Dispel. It's a little bit of a shame. Mage could have spell stole it, things like that, but chose not to. Priest could have mass dispelled it. It is what it is. Now, Avatar I'm using pretty much as soon as it comes off cooldown. The reason for that is it's such a low cooldown with anger management. Now, you can see here I'm running out of shield block charges. I'm actually running out of mitigation a little bit. So I just reset a second. I come back in, I charge, I get a shield block charge in itself, and I intervene. It gives me about 10 seconds of shield block. I go out, I charge back in. All of these things account to just lots of mitigation. Again, there was a bit of group damage there. There was damage on myself. The pack lasted a lot longer because they were all healing. And the priest did actually have to pull some numbers there, which is not what I want to see. I want to go through a dungeon without a priest, or a healer, I should say, never having to go above sort of 4k HPS. If they have to, I feel like I've made a mistake. Now, sometimes on things like Pride, yes, of course, you're going to have to heal a little bit if there's no DPS on something. But as a prot warrior at the moment, I feel like I can mitigate most of the damage against myself. And I can help contribute to kill things that I can't mitigate much quicker. So going into Mistcaller here, again, not a particularly nice boss. And what I'm going to do is I've immediately used everything. I want to pump some numbers. I want to burn his health. We don't have Time Warp. We don't have Pride, unfortunately, because we got bent over by the Maze RNG. But I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to keep my shield block up. I'm not going to use Ignore Pains. I'm just going to try and do as much damage as possible. Now, what I've started doing on the dog is going over and thunderclapping it, or trying to. And that is purely just to slow it and help out. Now, I was trying to work out which one was which here. It took me a second. Again, all of these guys that I'm playing with currently are pugs, so I didn't have any communications with them or anything like that. So I'm going to group them up. The reason I group them up, more rage regen, more just ability to pad and things like that. Sometimes I see tanks stand out of the way and just focus on patty cakes. You can do that, absolutely, because, I mean, there's no real reason to cleave off the boss. But if I ever use Ravager or things like that, I want it to be hitting 2 targets at least. So I do try to bring it to the ad as best as I can. So we're going to avoid all the balls here and things like that. Again, making sure I'm doing what I can to just help with utility. We got quite lucky here, and we're already at the right one. I'm going to drop Ravager. Again, it generates rage on both. I actually stand in the ball here, which is just me being a pleb. But that happens. Mistakes happen. Can't fault it. So get a bit unlucky with the dog. Again, we didn't have a mage at the time that dog was spawning, so it was always going to be on melee. And we get it down. I've popped Aftershock here. Now, part of my brain was going, I could probably pad a little bit DPS here, but the other part was actually that Aftershock is going to keep kicking the dog down. And it really did. It stopped the dog going very far at all, and that was a useful thing there. So, yes, part of it was to pad a little bit of damage. The other part was that actually that there's no real reason not to do it. So I am executing here. I'm not using any rage really on mitigation. This boss doesn't hit all particularly hard unless you make a mistake. And I was trying to kill it just that tad a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go on to the last clone, get this down. And we do get a little bit unlucky with the pride. Obviously, it would have been very, very nice if we'd have got pride before this boss. It is what it is, though. It kind of throws off pride in a second downstairs. And you're going to see, just in a second, the best heroic leap of all times. And I'm saying that not as an egotistical thing, but because, oh my god, how did this heroic leap happen? So I'm just looking at the overall there. Just at the end of that boss, bear in mind, we only pulled 2k DPS on that boss. I actually had a 4.1k overall DPS. And it kind of shows that this is what Prot Warriors are capable of doing. They're almost like adding another DPS at the moment. And of course, every tank does damage. Not every tank pulls 4.1k DPS. Not every tank pulls 5k DPS. And I genuinely think at 220 eye level, as Night Fae, we're going to be running Dreamweaver with Field of Blossoms, which gives us that extra haste after Ancient Aftershock. I think you plug all these things together, there is no reason why Prot Warriors shouldn't be pulling 5k DPS every single run in Mythic Plus, and that's like adding another DPS. It really, really is. And the impact that will have in things like pug groups is that you're going to be a lot stronger in the single target scenarios. You're going to be a lot stronger in the AoE scenarios. You're going to have to worry about less. The healer's going to have to heal less because every mob's dying 5 seconds faster, 3 seconds faster. The DPS are having to worry less about carrying the DPS because they have just spare DPS going. And all these things really do contribute to just the confidence of a group. And while it may sound crazy, the confidence of a group is the difference between going into a pride and going, oh god, we're going to die. This is the heroic leap, by the way. I obviously jumped off and I got stuck here. I literally just couldn't climb back up. So I just went, fine, rather than waste time, I'm going to die. Do QQ a little bit about it. I just don't know how that happens. But hey, it happened. Glad it didn't wipe the key, is all I'm saying. I would have been very, very upset if we were running out of time here and that was the reason we failed. And again, we go into this pack. We've not chucked down any cooldowns yet. We've used Avatar. We've used Ancient Aftershock now because I knew the bugs were coming. And we are just going to pump the Revenges. The reason for that is we have shield block up. We don't need to be ignore paining right now. As long as we can keep shield block up, we have enough mitigation. And we're pumping 10k DPS right now. Like, there are fights I go into when I'm playing my Boomy where I'm pulling like 4 or 5k DPS in these because all I'm able to do is put dots up and Starfall. I'm going into these fights as a Prot Warrior and actively making sure I leave my mark, and I would actually say that I'm able to carry much harder as a Prot Warrior than I am as a Boomy, even though my Boomy is 224 eye level and my Warrior is 210. That's the difference, and I genuinely think I can carry more on my Warrior. Again, the goal is still to go out and get Keystone Master at some point. This is the first time I believe I actually lost aggro in this run. The mage kind of pumped a little bit on one target, so I used my AoE Taunt. The AoE Taunt is one of the best things in the game because it's a fixate. It forces the mobs to hit you for that length of time. So I used it, jumped away, made sure all the mobs are going to hit me, and I get to reset my shield block, charge in, get a revenge proc, and then we never have threat aggros again. So we are going to get a pride after this next pull. So I'm quite aware here, right? We're on 79%. Literally the first thing that dies is going to spawn pride. So I go, right, okay, what can I do here to make sure this pull goes better? I can pump. I can kill these mobs as quick as I can, as equally as I can, to make sure that when pride spawns, the group's in a really healthy place. And again, we killed all the lavas really quickly. The 2 elite mobs are both half health. I actually stood in the poison for a little bit too long, so again, something I could have improved there. I could have taken just a little bit less damage. And we're going to basically just then cleave the pride down. If we were on comms, I would have said, don't worry about the ad, just focus the pride. I would have made sure that I could mitigate any of the damage that comes from the ad. And it wasn't a particularly high priority target anyway. We do cleave it down. But the pride is going to have 15-16 stacks by 40%. I believe I do use my AoE Roar here. I do my Rallying Cry. And again, it's just that extra utility. So we pulled 4.6k DPS, and again, it just means that things die quick enough that we're not having to worry too much. Imagine if I was pulling 2k DPS there, that Pride got another 2 or 3 stacks off, that may be a couple of people dying, and that's the truth of it. So we get into this pack here, again, drop the Ravager, started to get back into the routine of one kind of DPS cooldown per pack, obviously Ravager and Aftershock. The Conduit would make a big difference, having the 15-second reduced cooldown. You really can rotate these. But like I said, while Conduit energy is a thing, it's gonna take me a few days to get all of my conduits set up. And by a few days, I mean about 2 weeks. Which I'm not particularly impressed with, but what can we do about it? So we're going to get this last pack here, also the second last pack here. And I actually, for some reason, walked into this pack with no charge, no anything, and you just saw me get absolutely chunked. Don't do that. Every single pack you want to make sure you're engaging with a charge. Every single pack you want to try to be using an intervene if you can, or getting a second charge off. Don't just walk into a pack. It's very, very silly. And you, like I said, you just saw how quickly I got chunked if you don't have mitigation up. And that's the important part, is that if you don't actually play this correctly, Warrior will almost insta-die. It has happened to me. I've gone into a pack where I've just been absolutely obliterated. And it does happen, so just be a little bit wary of that. You do still want to, even if you're trying to pump numbers, you do still want to make sure you always have some form of mitigation up. And you can keep it up. I mean, it's not a hard thing to keep up. There is a little bit of skill involved. That's about it. But aside from that, it's just making sure you don't kind of take for granted the fact that you're pulling 6k DPS and forget that you're actually the tank. I'm really looking forward to getting max, or certainly some better eye level with this. I think I'd like to give Karain a go with First Strike. It doesn't necessarily work great with tanks because obviously you are getting hit very quickly, so you might not get First Strike on every mob. But you will get it at least at the start of the pack, and if you walk in at the start of the pack, Aftershock, Revenge, Best Served Cold Revenge, you're going to almost guarantee a critical strike there. All of that's going to hit really hard, and I think it might just help increase that DPS even further. Field of Blossoms is something with Dreamweaver that I'm interested in trying out as well. I think there's definitely much more room for improvement here in terms of doing damage. I don't think this is anywhere near our maximum. And I'm really, really excited to see what they can pull. So just before we get to the last boss here, a little bit of a plug. If you guys are interested in seeing any more videos like this, or if you have any ideas yourself you'd like me to go and test or try, please let me know in the comments. Our channel has grown exponentially recently. I'm really, really happy, really, really proud of everyone involved. And yeah, so guys, if you are interested, please let me know and we will work on getting that done, okay? So we are going to get into the boss here. This is a very, very messy boss, and there's just no real reason for it. Part of that's my fault. I just try to pump a little bit too much numbers. And that is something that can happen with Warriors. Sometimes you get just that tad bit more focused on DPSing than you do on actually tanking. Again, I should have run out here and charged back in, get myself a shield block. I didn't. I just focused on revenging the boss. I should have potentially been looking for an intervene in a second. I'm not sure if I use it. I don't. Look, my intervene's off cooldown. I've got 2 charges and an intervene up, which is very, very bad. I'm wasting charges. But I'm just trying to do as much DPS as possible. I kind of thought this boss would fall over a little bit quicker. I can see that my group's actually struggling to deal with these ads. We get the acid explosion down, and my group is really struggling. So I actually use a intervene, not for my own benefit, probably the first one I've done in this entire run, and intervene the Pally just to make sure that he's in a safe position. This DK did not want to run out, but I also kind of didn't want to move the boss for everyone else, so he does eventually get the hint, and he walks away and immediately runs back in and gets it again, which is very, very unfortunate. Now, we're all in a really safe position. It's 10% health on the boss. I just thought, we'll be fine. And I shut down a little bit. I take a lot of damage. I do have to rally there. And I'm just trying to make sure that my group's in the best position to finish this boss as possible. I do stand in some acid. It becomes a very, very messy finish. But hey, we managed to kill it. We get the 1 chest. Probably not great. We do 4.1k overall DPS, and there is the damage breakdown if you were interested. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys, and catch you later. Goodbye.